Dreamworks and Illumination. What do the two very different animation studios have in common? One, obviously they're owned by Universal, and two, they are surprising everyone, left and right, with their movies in these past few years being amazing, and really just making the standard of animation rise ever since 2020. And today we're talking about how DreamWorks and Illumination and Sony, it's going to be mostly DreamWorks and Illumination today, are dethroning Disney, the powerhouse of animation for almost basically now 100 years, I feel like has been dethroned. Because Disney's upcoming slate of films just feel mostly generic. Not saying Elementals is going to be bad, it just feels generic. And DreamWorks and Illumination are telling these new stories, and things like Minions The Rise of Gru actually turning out great. I didn't think it was going to be that great of a movie, but you know what? It wasn't even that bad. And then you have the Mario movie breaking all expectations. Sure, it wasn't the perfect movie, but it was probably it is the best video game movie I've ever seen. And DreamWorks, on the other hand, do I even have to start? We have the Bad Guys, we have Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. It's just insane on where these two animation studios are going. And they seem to be riding high, with DreamWorks releasing Teenage Kraken in June, and we also have Illumination releasing this new movie called Migration that is original. It doesn't look like it's milking any other franchise. It's an entirely new franchise. So that's really nice to see coming out of both. And that is exactly what we're going to be talking about today. Before we start, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and let's get into everything. Now, DreamWorks, on the other hand, was seriously going down. Towards the end of the decade, their movies were just slowly declining in quality. The sequels that were being released just really weren't that great. Boss Baby and Trolls were kind of the center point of the company, which, if you haven't noticed, they're not the most favorable of franchises, and people are kind of happy those franchises are dying. Not really Trolls, on the other hand. Trolls 3 is releasing later this year, which I will check out. I'll take one for the team and check out that movie, but I'll see how that turns out. Maybe I'll be surprised. But there started to be a resurgence in their quality of films. This kinda started in 2021. I mean, we started to pick up a little bit. I mean, the Boss Baby just sucked. 2020, the Scrooge sequel actually was pretty good. I was pleasantly surprised with that. And the movie actually has aged well, through these few years. Because I honestly, when I first watched it, I didn't think I was going to ever really rewatch it again. But here I am, on my third rewatch of the movie, and it's actually still pretty good. Then 2022 rolled around, the peak moment in DreamWorks. I don't think DreamWorks had this big of a peak moment ever since Shrek 2. I'm not even joking. And that is when the Bad Guys released, which had a lot of good reception from it. A lot of people loved the movie, and it did great at the box office. Then the big kahuna, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, came out, and just everyone loved the movie. I've talked about this movie so many times on my channel. You know how I feel about this movie. It is great. The story is amazing. It's just a perfect baked cake that DreamWorks has been cooking up for a franchise that was considered niche. Is now probably the most highly requested sequel in the entirety of DreamWorks right now. Most people want a Shrek 5 / a Puss in Boots 3 happen, and it's most likely going to be happening, because it's the first DreamWorks movie in a while to be nominated for an Oscar, and not just that, just people have it on their best DreamWorks movie, not even just their best animated movie list, which is insane for a company that everyone thought was going to be going downhill. And, you know, the thing is, with this year, people are thinking that train might die, but personally, I don't think it is. Teenage Kraken looks like something new, but I do feel like they showed a little too much in the trailer. But from what I've heard, the runtime is actually a lot longer than it should be. It looks like it's pushing 2 hours. I could be wrong, my sources could be wrong. But from what I've heard, it's pushing a 1 hour, 50-minute runtime, which we'll see. We'll see how this movie turns out. And then we have Trolls 3, which has a generic plot, has some new stuff thrown in there, And we'll see how that turns out. Hopefully this is the last movie and we do not get a Trolls 4. I think that's enough. DreamWorks is seemingly going into not stopping at 3 films and are going into 4 films. We have Shrek 4, and now we have Kung Fu Panda 4. Speaking of that, DreamWorks train is not gonna die, because on March 17th, I might be wrong on the release date, but simply March of 2024, we are getting Kung Fu Panda 4. I said 4 a lot, didn't I? But point is, Kung Fu Panda 4 is being written / produced by the director of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. It's not being directed. I guess I have to clarify that now. He's not directing Kung Fu Panda 4, but still, the influence of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is most likely going to be highly influenced onto this film. The Kung Fu Panda franchise has really not have a bad film. Sure, people have their thoughts on Kung Fu Panda 3, but Kung Fu Panda 2 and Kung Fu Panda 1 are probably, like I said, some of the highest tier animated films people have had, and especially Kung Fu Panda 2. I just love that movie to death. And I cannot wait to see what villain they cook up for Kung Fu Panda 4, because if you know Kung Fu Panda, you know their villains are top tier. None of their villains have ever missed, and I cannot wait to see who the new member of the Kung Fu Panda villain trio is going to be added, because it's just insane, man. And then I think we'll see what happens, because there is a CinemaCon for Universal coming up in a few weeks, so we are going to get some new announcement for DreamWorks and some new reveals. So we may get a reveal for a Shrek 5, because it's been in the news. I know I've been late to this, and I'll make a separate video towards this, but Shrek 5 is basically confirmed. And even a Donkey sequel, which I don't know about, but we'll see. We'll see how that turns out. But DreamWorks seems to be riding high, and it doesn't look like it's gonna stop. I mean, there might be some minor bumps in the road with a Trolls 3, and unfortunately Boss Baby 3 is happening. Hopefully I could just skip over that movie, and hopefully it just never happens, which it probably will, unfortunately. But DreamWorks is riding high. I am not worried about DreamWorks, and they are doing better than Disney. Lightyear and Strange World both bombed, only making about $200 million, while Puss in Boots: The Last Wish made so much outcry, regardless of Avatar 2 being a competitor in the box office, made almost $500 million. That is an accomplishment for that movie fighting Avatar: The Way of Water. That is an accomplishment right there. Because honestly, I do think if Puss in Boots wasn't fighting that competition, it would have cracked 500 million, probably even further. So honestly, the movie did great, everyone loves it, and still will be talking about that movie for generations. So I'm not worried about DreamWorks. Illumination, on the other hand, Illumination is a pretty interesting topic for me. Before, it was just a generic studio for me. I like some of their films. I mean, I like the original Despicable Me. I like the first Secret Life of Pets, the second one I didn't really like. And I like The Grinch. It was a heartwarming story in that one, even though the Jim Carrey one still solos, like I said. But newly, we had Minions: The Rise of Gru, which I wasn't really expecting to be that good. I kinda hopped on the hype train because of the meme, but I really was just expecting it to be a dumb, fun movie, which it was, but it had some elements where I was like, okay, this is a story. It's not just a bunch of gags thrown into one movie like a certain Secret Life of Pets movie was, the sequel. And you know what? It was actually pretty good. I had a fun time with it. And then we finally had the teaser trailer for the Mario movie. And that hype train just began, and it was not stopping. There was not a single bump in the road. Yeah, sure, the cast was controversial, mostly just one cast member, but simply enough, when the first trailer came out, all our worries kinda slowly started to disappear. Mario's voice was still a concern, but as the trailers just kept going, it was like it was just completely disappearing. And everyone was hyping up this movie until the critics stomped on this movie immediately. And that's when the concern started. 40% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's at 58 right now. Hopefully the critics will bump it up to a 60. But it's really crazy how badly they bash this movie. Could it really be that bad? And the worrying started. But honestly, I couldn't really see this movie being bad. I mean, from looking at the trailers, it just doesn't look like what they're giving it. I mean, some critics, not gonna name their names, because I don't want to start controversy, but they bashed this movie, calling it the worst Illumination movie they've ever seen, one of the worst movies they've ever seen, and even saying that the 1993 movie is better, which is ludicrous. That movie is literally considered one of the worst pieces of cinema ever. So, I don't think that's possible. And I went to go see the movie, opening day, and no, it was not what these critics were saying. The movie was phenomenal. I loved it. It is the best video game movie I've seen. And the movie absolutely broke expectations. My expectations, too. I thought this movie was gonna make at least $500 million, maybe $600, because we've had a big video game franchises come out already. The top dog, probably next to Mario, is Pokemon. And Detective Pikachu kind of ranked up $400 million, which isn't bad. It was a success. Sonic 2, an also big gaming franchise, also cracked $400 million. The sequel I'm talking about. But Mario destroyed everything. I think there was one factor. Well, yes, it's an Illumination movie. It's fully animated. It draws more people in. And two, there was absolutely no competition, and it looks like April is gonna be the spot for video game movies now. The Minecraft movie in 2025 is coming out in the same week in April, so hopefully they're probably trying to cash in on this week too. So yeah, the Mario movie is on track to make $1 billion. I do not think even Nintendo and Illumination expected this. They knew it was gonna be profit and would go past 500 million, but to join the $1 billion club for a video game movie is unheard of. And yes, the Mario movie has some of its flaws. I've watched it about 2/3 times now. It has its flaws, but I honestly do think that the movie is just fine. I do think the movie deserved at least 10 more minutes to flesh out certain moments, because on my third watch, I did notice some things started to go a little fast, and I was like, okay, I get what some of these people are talking about. But you can't tell me you didn't have a little fun with the movie if you've played the games, and I honestly did. The first time I had watched it, it was going by fast, but I just loved it from beginning to end, and I still do. And the Mario movie is a new stepping stone for Illumination. Nintendo is definitely going to collaborate with Illumination for lots more Nintendo films, and it's going to be a new era for the company. And Illumination, on their original films, their quality seems to be rising and not settling for just the fart jokes that Minions have always had. Yes, Despicable Me 4 is coming out next year, but I am actually excited for that. I actually am excited to see how that turns out, and I think Illumination and Dreamworks are back on track. Universal is eating right now, and the Mario movie isn't the only big box office video game movie that's coming out this year. Universal has the Five Nights at Freddy's movie releasing in October, and even though I do think it is a stupid decision to release it on Peacock, because we also know how when a movie goes to streaming the first day it's released, the pirating goes insane, but I think the Five Nights at Freddy's movie could also bring in lots of money, because the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise is a massive, massive franchise. And I do think that movie will do well. If they remove the Peacock thing, it will do amazing, but I think it'll just do good. That's where I'm leaving it at right now. And with both studios, they're just killing it right now. Disney has been dethroned. Sony's also on the rise with Spider-Verse, can't forget about them. I'll definitely make a video about Sony's rise to fame. After we went from the Emoji Movie for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse 2 being one of the most anticipated films of the year. That's insane, man. And it's breaking all animation standards. And it's just insane that we're in a new era of animation. Animation has been disrespected, treated as something only for children, but it's evolving. It's growing into something that everyone can enjoy. And that's honestly what it should have been from the start. But I'm so happy to see where these companies are going. I'm not playing down on Disney and saying it's the worst company in the world, but I want Disney to just change things up a bit. Just be not just original, but brand new, not generic. And I think if Disney were to do that, people would get back into more of their films. Look back at your old films, what made them magical and drew people in? Don't stick with the normal formula. And I think that Disney will be fine. That is what Dreamworks and Illumination are doing. Yes, they're making sequels, but they're doing new stuff with it, not making it feel generic and grander than the other movies. And I think that's what Disney needs to learn from Dreamworks and Illumination and Sony and all these other talented animation companies. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. Dreamworks and Illumination are riding high. Illumination is riding high right now with the Mario movie. Teenage Kraken, I think, will do pretty well. And Kung Fu Panda 4 I know is going to do amazing. Trolls, we'll see how that turns out. But I think these two companies are set. And that's what I wanted to talk about, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out, everyone.